Hey, it's Jesse Cervantes with Creative Congo, and welcome to my first 2-minute toot. Well, fact is, I've tried to do this 4 or 5 times, and there's no way I can get through this in 2 minutes. But the idea of this being a 2-minute toot lives on because the concept is something that you can do in 2 minutes or less anytime you want to, which is creating these animated outlines around any kind of shape using shape layers, whether it be a still image or text or of course a shape layer, and also just sort of by proxy being able to make a shape layer out of any type of mask. This one down here is pretty interesting because all it is a one solid line and then another line that is dotted that's sort of doing the animated, and when you put them together it sort of creates this Las Vegas-y kind of looking thing. And I like using this because it's a lot more, tons more control in my opinion than using Vegas or using the stroke effect. So let's get started. So here we have a Creative Congo logo, which is a still image, and all you gotta do is highlight your image, go to layer and auto trace. So right now you can see the outline going around, and I can see what the auto trace is going to look like. If you don't see that, it's because this preview button right here is not highlighted, and so you won't really know what it's going to look like. But if you click that, you can see your preview, and so I like the way that looks. My settings here are 1, 10, 35, 25. You can play around with these a little bit and make them what you want. This sort of works for me, at least for this purpose. Hit OK. And all it does is create a white solid with a series of masks on it. And it goes right on the top. And if I hit M, I can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 masks. Well, where are the masks? I don't have this clicked right here, so I can toggle my mask visibility. Now there are 7 masks, and the only one I want is this blue one. You notice that they're all different colors, and I set that up right up here on Preferences, Appearance, and you can click Cycle Mask Colors using label colors, and that will cycle through all the colors. And it makes it easier in this kind of case because I just want the blue one, which is mask number 2. So I'm just going to get rid of all the other masks because I don't need them. So I'm just highlighting them and hitting delete. And now I'm left with just this one because that's where I want the outline to happen. Now, the next step is to make a shape layer. So I'm going to go over here and go to New Shape Layer. Now there's nothing in it right now. It's just an empty shape layer. So it's basically just a layer that has nothing. You can see one point right here, but there's not even a pixel there. It's just letting you know there's something there. So I came over here and I clicked on my mask and hit Command C and came over to my layer and hit Command V. All I get, if I hit M, is a mask on a empty shape layer. So that's pretty much useless. I'm going to get rid of that. What you have to do is you have to put something into this shape layer. So I'm going to go to my contents, add path. Now I can add a path to the shape layer. Well, what's my path going to be? It's going to be this shape right here. So I click on this, Command C, go to my path, hit Command V, and all I get is another mask. So this is part 1 of where hair begins to appear in your fingers because you are pulling them out from your head. What you have to do is open up the path. You have to actually be on the word path where the stopwatch is. You hit Command C, you click there, Command V, and now you have a path. Well, wonderful. I got my path now, so let me add my stroke. And again, nothing happens. This is part 2 of frustration territory. You cannot add a fill, you cannot add a stroke because there is nothing here. All I have is a path, and if you want to add a fill and a stroke, you actually have to add it because you started with nothing. So I'm going to add a stroke or fill. In this case, I'm going to add a stroke, and now you can see there's the white, and I can make it thicker, and now I've got my path that is in the shape of that image based from the mask that I just made. So I'm going to make this stroke yellow because I just kind of like the way that looks in this case, and scale it down a little bit. I'm actually going to turn off this auto trace. I really don't need it anymore, but just going to keep it for a second. Come up here, hit V, make this. Okay, so one thing that happens is this fits the image exactly, but when you scale it up, it doesn't keep really the same shape. You can see it kind of, you lose it here a little bit. It looks good here and here, but not really right here. And this might be okay for your purposes. I've done it a few times just like this, and and that might be okay. You come down here and open this up, and you can find your content, stroke, and where this plus sign is on the dashes, you can click it. I'm actually going to click this to turn off so I can see the actual layer, and turn this down to about 3. And so now you have your dashes, and you can make the dashes larger or smaller. And right underneath the dash is the offset. And when you move that, that's what creates the animation. So simply hit the option, click on that, right? Time times 50, and now I have an animation. Or you can hit time times -50, or you can -40, or you can use keyframes, and you can have your animation going around the image. Well, I'm actually going to make this a little bit smaller so it looks a little bit better. So, okay, well, that's really the basic of this entire tutorial. So there it is. Now, taking this a couple steps further, if you come over here, if you notice on this one, it really goes around the shape nicely. Really looks good and really follows the contours of the image. So how can we make that happen over here? Well, just one extra step. And so I'm going to go ahead and just dump this shape layer. I don't need it anymore. Go back to this auto trace. This is the original auto trace we did a second ago. And all I'm going to do is come over here and add a stroke effect. In this case, I'll make it red so you can really see what's going on. And I'm going to pull the stroke up to like 10. So I just made a stroke over the mask, and all it did is make everything a little bit thicker. And now I'm just going to go to Layer, Auto Trace, and I'm going to auto trace the auto trace. Dump the original one we had, and now I have an image. If I drop this below the layer, you see it goes right around the edges and contours of the layer, and that's going to be exactly what I want for my shape layer. So do the same thing again. Layer, New, Shape Layer, toggle it down, add a path, come over here, hit my path, toggle this down, make sure I'm on the stopwatch, Command V. I can't see it because I had toggled off the visibility of the masks, so just keep an eye out for that. Come over here, add a stroke, make my stroke yellow again because I like the way that looks, and then toggle that down and add a dash. I'm going to go ahead and just scale that down a little bit. And I'll just delete this auto trace. Don't really need that anymore. And there you go. And same kind of thing. Come over here to my contents, stroke, dashes, and then that's where my offset is. Option click, times using the asterisk, 30. And there we go. So how can we go this a little bit even further? Have a little bit more control over the way this thing looks? Well, I'm going to toggle this back off again. Right here where the dashes are, you can actually hit the plus sign again, and now I can have control over how big the gap is. So I can get a very big gap, have a very short dash, and then have it look sort of just like dots going around it. I can have a lot longer dashes with a lot longer space, and maybe that's what I want it to look like. Also, you can add plus again, and I can have a second group of dashes. So now I can have one dash that's very, very small, a long gap, add another gap, and then I can have control over exactly how much space is between each gap and each dot. And this is a very sort of Illustrator kind of thing you can do. One key note: if you start playing around with this and you decide later that you don't want, for example, this dash, if you just hit delete, you lose everything. You lose the entire effect. So you hit Command Z, you lose the entire stroke. The only way you can get rid of dashes and gaps is by using the minus sign. So you have to go back, and now I'm just right back to my original dash with the default space between them. So that's essentially it for that. Now, taking it even just a little bit further, what happened here with the word toots. So all I did here is the exact same thing. If I open up this one, the top one, that's the dotted lines, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 paths, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 letters. So I just took all the masks and made them over here. The only thing to sort of keep an eye on when you're doing text, and really even if you're doing these kind of layers, is the way you set up your auto trace. So I'll show you sort of some problems you might run into. I'm going to go over here and go ahead and add the stroke back to this word toots, and make it a little bbit bigger. So one thing that could happen is, for example, here with my S, the stroke's not going to be able to go inside of the S. So you would either have to get a thinner font or something that was a little bit larger if you want it to go all the way inside. In this case, I'm just going to let it go through the outline, and I'll get rid of that. So when I go to my layer auto trace, if, for example, I had some different kinds of settings, you can see right here already that the T is not really in a perfectly straight line. This S is not really following this perfectly. And this is something you can run into depending on your corner roundness, your threshold. So I'm going to turn up my roundness, let the roundness be a little bit more. And you can see those adjustments in real time. And that's actually looking worse. So I'm going to take it down to 0. So this is the kind of thing you have to just play around with. And you might need to, afterwards, come back over here and use your pen tool to sort of just play around with this. In this case, I wanted this to be straight, so I'll use my convert vertex tool and make it into a straight line. Make sure that that's exactly the way I want it to look. In this case, I'll get rid of some of these pinpoints over here. So when you're doing this, you might have to come in and do just a little bit of work to make it look a little bit better, but it's worth the extra, 30, 40 seconds that it takes to do this to ensure that your final result is going to look really, really nice. So that's just sort of a thing to know about that. One last thing. I'm going to take this back off and turn these back on. So let's say that you want to do something different. You don't want dotted lines. You can, I'm going to see, turn this one off. So here's my just a solid outline using this shape layer. You have another option in here. You have several, in fact, and I strongly encourage you to play around with these and to see what's available. But there's one here called Trim Paths, which is essentially a right-on, right-off effect. So when you turn on your Trim Paths, actually I already had one on there, so I'm just going to use this one. Start 0, and if I move it up, you can see that they're getting written on, or if I go the other way, getting written on this way. So you can set keyframes here and move it forward, and then have the stroke right on if you want it to, and then right off. So you can have this kind of thing where it comes on and then comes off. Or if you move them a little bit closer together, you can get this kind of thing where they sort of chase each other around. And just have that repeat a few times like I did up here, where it just sort of repeats I use the loop expression to make this happen over and over again. Alright folks, that's basically it. Hope this has been enjoyable, useful, and a lot of fun. I'm Jesse Cervantes with Creative Congo. Thanks for watching. Bye.